This is Holy Faith Media.
Joe Pasillo and Joe Resinello. So as Joe and I always say, the left is teeing it up. Today's no exception.
That are taking this down, are they not haters?
I think they might be listening to the Frontline with Joe and Joe.
Should be.
And once more, dear friends, we are going way into the breach. Hello again, everyone, and welcome to the Frontline with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo and Joe Resinello. And we got a great conversation for you tonight because there's a lot of nonsense, as always.
And we have made America great again.
Where's the woke media when it comes to that? Our conversation is your conversation, and that conversation is going on everywhere. Welcome back, everyone, to the Frontline with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, as always, joined by Joe Resinello. And once more, dear brothers and sisters, Sunday night, 8 o'clock, live, we are going into the breach. And we got a phenomenal show for you tonight. And just so everybody knows, right now, and for the last couple months, we've been going across about 20 different platforms every time we go on. So it's phenomenal. We're on Apple Podcast, and we're on Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, Holy Faith Media, all of it. So wherever you find us, please like us, subscribe, share, listen, do all that fun stuff. At the end of the day, you've been supporting us, all the way through. We got near 900 viewers right now watching this, and I think you're going to love the show we have for you tonight. We got a couple things going on that we need to discuss. The first story, because it's just the way it is, it's in your face, it's in the media, okay, is Biden is a devout Catholic, okay? Now, Joe and I have said on this show a million times that we are not judgmental. We go out of our way not to judge, okay? And we're really striving to make sure that we always tell the truth, okay, but with charity, okay? But here's the thing. Joe Biden, objectively speaking, is not a devout Catholic. How he will be judged is by God alone to decide. But right now, Joe Biden is in very, very bad shape as far as his Catholic faith is concerned. All right, and there's reasons why. Not just throwing stones at the guy. There's reasons why, and a lot of it, most of it, is self-inflicted. Cardinal Burke has something to say about that. So we want to talk to you guys about that. Also, a Jersey Italian priest, all right, Father Michael Orsi, he's got something to say about it too. So he's out of Camden, the Diocese of Camden, New Jersey. We're going to bring up what he had to say. Now, of course, you got the other side. And if you ask me, the charity in my heart diminishes, which it should never do, whenever anyone says the phrase nuns on the bus. I shake. Okay, I my body contorts when I hear either the name Sister Simone Campbell or Sister Janine Gramnick or Father James Martin, okay, whenever I hear nuns on the bus. That's an immediate red flag, okay? Really, you have to watch what they say. Well, guess what? We're going to pick apart the very weak argument that Sister Simone Campbell tries to put forth about Joe Biden and his view on abortion. We got John Kerry. I mean, he's the gift that keeps on giving, man. All right, he really is. He's out there telling these poor guys, he's out there telling these guys who just lost their job in the oil and gas industry, you can make solar panels. We're going to get into that too. And I think we have a couple other stories that we're going to cover. In the meantime, like I said, thank you for your support. Thank you for your prayers. Please like, subscribe, share, do all that fun stuff. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Joe, and we'll get started with Cardinal Burke.
Well, we'll start, I guess you could look at like the headliner for this, that Cardinal Burke condemns Biden's plan. The plan that we're speaking specifically about is Biden wants to codify Roe v. Wade into federal law. And that's what Burke spoke on specifically. As far as what Joe is saying about the devout Catholic, that's the talking point his press secretary keeps using. Anytime they question him is their statement is he's a devout Catholic.
That was her response, by the way, to the reporter.
Yeah.
I think he was with OAN. Or he was with one of the more conservative outlets, okay? And the reporter asked her about the Mexico City policy.
Joe Biden's a devout Catholic.
Joe Biden's a devout Catholic. Let's move on from
and
that.
that's the danger of this presidency, and that's what we covered last week, the face of American Catholicism. Because Joe Biden, sadly, just because you go to church doesn't mean you're a devout Catholic, to be honest with you. It's about what you do. It's how your life looks. You see, that's how God is going to judge us. And to be a devout Catholic, you cannot champion the things that he champions. And that's why that's an incorrect statement, and it's not a fair statement, but it's a deceptive statement. Because sadly, a lot of Catholics roll that way. Their Catholicism is on the surface. Again, just because you go to church doesn't mean you're a devout Catholic.
Well, Joe Biden is the one who famously said, "I'll ram my rosary beads down your throat."
Well, that's not exactly...
That's how he's going to prove he's Catholic.
That's not exactly, a proper way to
Lori,
go about
the
it
church
either.
makes the rules, Lori. The church makes the rules. No disrespect to you. The church makes the rules, okay? Not Joe and Joe, not Taylor Marshall, okay? Not anybody. The church makes the rules.
And that's a good point to bring up. And we have to follow it. You see, being a son of the church means you're obedient. See, that's what the Blessed Mother was. She was obedient. She could have said, I'm marrying Joseph on my terms. God had a different plan. She was obedient. You see, part of being a Catholic is being obedient. You see, God comes first, not your job, not what you want to do, and that's the way to heaven. That's the way to heaven. I'm just telling you. So let's talk about Cardinal Burke's statements on the codification of Roe v. Wade. On the 48th anniversary, this is very important, of the infamous decision, Biden and Harris issued a statement. This is what they said. In the past 4 years, referring to the Trump presidency, reproductive health, including the right to choose, has been under relentless and extreme attack. They added, the Biden-Harris administration is committed to codifying Roe v. Wade and appointing judges that respect foundational precedents like Roe.
Let's really quick, there's so much to go there. Let's start with this idea that Amy Coney Barrett blew a hole in when she was in front of the Senate. Not the first time for the appellate court, the second time for the Supreme Court. Okay, Roe versus Wade is not settled law. Amy Coney Barrett made that point to every one of the leftist demons, every one of them, and said, Brown versus Board of Education, that's settled law. She gave the example of Marbury versus Madison. That's settled law. Defined as a law that no one would even think to question. Nobody thinks about overturning Brown versus Board of Education. Okay? That's not the case with Roe versus Wade. It has never been settled. There's been a march for life ever since Roe versus Wade was a ruling of the Supreme Court in 1973. There have been states' battles against legalizing abortion ever since. It is the opposite of a foundational principle. It's an opposite of a foundational constitutional right. It is not settled law, all right? It is hotly contested and hotly debated. But they need to make it so, no, it's really all settled. It's just these right-wing extremists that don't want to let the issue be settled. That's the argument they're making. Go ahead, Joe.
But also keep this in mind. What the Nazis did in Germany was legal. It was legal.
Right.
Slavery in America was legal. Both were wrong. Just because something is a law doesn't mean it's right. It has to comport with the natural law. That's why we want natural law jurists. What's the natural law? It's the law written on the heart of man. It's the law that comes from God. It's higher than a constitutionalist. We're not interested in constitutionalists. We are. Don't get me wrong. I'd rather take a constitutionalist or an originalist than, sadly, what we're going to get from Biden and Harris if they nominate a Supreme Court judge, or what we got from Obama. However, we want a natural law jurist. That's how law, as defined by Thomas Aquinas, it should be laid out. And laws have been incorrect. So this is what Burke said. He said it at Our Lady of Guadalupe Shrine in La Crosse. By the way, he established that shrine. that's in Wisconsin. That's where he's from. This is what he had to say. He said, "We live in times when it can seem that the evil one is succeeding in his program of lies and death. In our own nation, the federal government wants to codify as law the total unjust decision of the Supreme Court, which made legal abortion on demand, and to impose upon schools the teaching of gender theory." Burke said, at the same time, it threatens to deny freedom of religion, the freedom of citizens to follow God's plan for the world and for man, inscribed in nature itself and written upon every human heart. He's referring to the natural law. There. So that's a pretty strong statement. And I commend him for it. Frankly, I don't understand. And we're going to go into another bishop, in my view, a good one. It's Bishop Neumann in Kansas City. He is the chairman of, pro-life activities for the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops. He's a good bishop. He made a strong statement, too. I don't understand how every priest, I just don't. Because here's the thing. What he's doing is putting his own soul in danger. Forget about politics for a minute. If you care about Joe Biden, you have to call him on this one. You gotta. Because he's in objective mortal sin. This is a mortal sin. It's a mortal sin, objectively speaking.
Right.
And he has, you see, it's different if I'm not pro-choice, let me make that clear. But if I'm pro-choice, I don't have the power of the office to impose my will on others. I have no power to impose my will on others. But if you hold the office of the presidency, you do have power, and the bishop has to make a statement. I don't know how they're not. I say that in all fairness. I'm simply flabbergasted. And in fairness, Bishop Gomez wrote a letter. It was fair. It was to the point. And frankly, if you ask me, he did what he was supposed to do. It was fair, it was charitable, but it was also direct. And every bishop should be doing it.
Every bishop should be doing it, okay? And let's make a clear distinction when it comes to love and being a judgmental person, being a merciful and forgiving person. Let's be clear, because that's what we do on this show, all right? We state our case clearly. If you do not say, whether it's on a podcast or whether it's in public, if you do not make it clear that Joe Biden is in need of repentance, then you don't truly love him. You don't.
Well, that's not mercy.
You do not care about his soul if you don't, from the rooftops, let him know, Mr. Biden, you are in an objective state of mortal sin. You're not pro-choice, Mr. Biden. If you were pro-choice, let's break this down for a second. And Joe and I are not pro-choice. We're abolitionists, and we state that clearly, and we'll be stating that clearly for the last 2 years. If you were personally opposed to abortion, but you're pro-choice on the legality of abortion, then my view, correct me if I'm wrong, then very simply as a politician, you're tolerant. Let's say you tolerate pro-choice legislation that keeps abortion legal. That's not what Joe Biden does. That's not what he does. He aggressively promotes abortion. He supports your money going to Planned Parenthood and NARAL and the rest of that horrid crew. He supports your money going to foreign countries to promote abortions and to commit abortions. He wants your money, your taxpayer money, to be withheld from countries in the form of foreign aid who do not agree with him on his pro-abortion stance. Countries like maybe Poland, which is a pro-life country. So let's be clear. Joe Biden is not personally opposed to abortion. It's clear in his actions, because he's not simply, like Giuliani is pro-choice. We don't agree with it. But Giuliani would never promote abortion the way Joe Biden does. Giuliani is tolerant of it. We think he's wrong, and he needs to repent of his position too. But Biden is not pro-life personally. He is pro-abortion, and for the reasons that I stated. If you don't tell him that and let him know that he's in bad shape, his soul is in bad shape, then you don't really love him. Because if you just let him go and say, well, God will judge him, without letting him know, then that's being indifferent to him. That's not caring for his soul. That's not being charitable. It really isn't. Charity doesn't always feel good, okay? Sometimes you have to tell a harsh truth. And these bishops are telling Joe Biden, the harsh truth. What did Norman say?
Well, Neumann, and again, Neumann is the chairman of pro-life activities for the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops. This is what he said, and he lamented it. He said, "It's deeply disturbing and tragic that any president would praise and commit to codifying a Supreme Court ruling that denies unborn children their most basic human and civil right, the right to life, under the euphemistic guise of health service." Neumann reminded all Catholics that the Catechism states, since the first century, the Church has affirmed the moral evil of every procured abortion. This teaching has not changed, and it remains unchangeable. See, that's clear. I've said this time and time again. Me and my wife, we talk about the Church because we're Catholic. We try to live our life in accordance to teaching. We're not perfect, clearly. But what's it called? Christ was clear. You see, this is something, and all leadership must be clear. You have to be clear as a leader. A bishop is a leader. He has the teaching head of his diocese. That's what a bishop is. He has the teaching head, which means if a priest strays, just like a father, if one of your children stray, a father's job is to corral that child. Not to be, insane about it, but to corral the child and say, listen, what you're doing isn't right. And that's why many bishops are extremely learned men. They're very intelligent. They have advanced degrees in philosophy and theology, and they're very learned for that reason. But it's not, you don't get that job to be a fancy guy and have a driver and a cook. Mm-hmm. You get that job because you have to make tough decisions. It's a tough job. I wouldn't want it. It has a lot of responsibility. And it's the bishop's job to do that for the good of Joe Biden. That's what Padre Pio did, by the way. Padre Pio would not give you absolution in confession. A priest can do that. If you go to confession and you're going to confess a sin and say you're not repentant of it, we'll just use something. Theft. Mm-hmm. Say you come in, I'm a priest, and you say, I stole $1,000. So my response would be, are you going to give it back? You stole it, right? Yeah, I stole it. I'm sorry. You're sorry? I'm glad you're sorry. Are you going to give it back? If they said no, then I'd say, I can't give you absolution.
Right.
I can't. In good conscience, I'm not doing my job. Well, it's the same thing. The bishop has a job to do for the good of Joe Biden, but also for scandal. Joe Biden is causing scandal, and that's what we covered last week because he is Catholic. He's basically showing himself to be a Catholic, but his actions are not. That creates scandal and that creates confusion, and it's the bishop's job to right the ship.
And righting the ship requires too. Look, Dave the Hermit is in the chat room. He says Biden is a drugged puppet. Biden may soon be past the point where he's able to reason these things. Now, you want to talk about being merciful to somebody. If he passes that point of being able to be truly contrite on this position, he can change. I remember.
He does.
I know it wasn't as aggressive at the time, but the former governor of New York, okay, years ago when we were kids, Governor Hugh Carey, he was Catholic, okay, Irish Catholic. Later on in an interview, he said, I was wrong about my position on abortion. I think it was on 60 Minutes or one of the shows. This was before he died.
Good.
Very sincerely. He was in his 80s, I think, at the time. And it was just before he died. He says, I was wrong about my position on abortion. But he had his reason. He was able to repent. And we all of us love it when somebody who is baptized, who has an indelible mark on their soul, okay, when the Holy Spirit penetrates and that person comes to repentance, we rejoice. The Bible says that. We rejoice. There's more joy in heaven when one sinner repents. We want that for Joe Biden. We do not hate this man. But he's almost at the point where he's not going to be able to think clearly. And he's not going to be able to make a good confession. He is a drugged puppet. He looks it. He acts it. You see it in the way he walks. You see it in the way he talks. And that should be your concern as a Catholic. That should be your concern, is that he obstinately, even now, knowing that his time is short, at least as far as his cognitive abilities, okay, that his soul is in danger. I pray, and this does not make me better than anybody, because I'm not better than anybody. In fact, I'm worse than most people, okay? I pray for him in my rosary, every time I pray my rosary, which is pretty much every day, okay, by name, that he repents. Because, Joe, if you're not praying for him,
Well, we're supposed to pray for our leaders.
How could you say you love this guy if you're not praying for him? He's about to go to hell for his position. How could you not be praying for him?
And we shouldn't hate anyone.
We shouldn't.
Actually,
No.
if we're Catholic, you don't like. There's people. I don't have to like everybody, but we have to love everybody. And we're arguing against positions. It's positions. We shouldn't hate anyone. God is very clear about that too. You know what I'm saying? We shouldn't hate anyone. And charity, basically mercy rather, requires truth. You're not being merciful if you're not speaking the truth in charity. You see, here's another thing. It's not about me being right. You got to watch that sometimes. I got to watch that. Trust me. You could say everything right and still be wrong. St. Paul says that. He says you're just a gong. You see, we have to say things in love. Why am I saying the truth? Is it to validate me? To show that I'm smart? Or to show that I'm right? Who cares?
Right.
Who am I? Who cares? I'm saying it because it's the truth, and the truth points to Christ. You see, if you speak the truth, you point to God, because God is the way, the truth, and the life. And he's not the custom. You see, it's not for me to define. It's an absolute. And that's what the church should be doing and does.
Mm-hmm.
But in some cases, because humans are in it, it fails. Because we're all human and humans fail. But in this particular case, Burke is on point and so is Neumann. And frankly, every single bishop should hold that same position because it's the only position to hold.
And it shouldn't be a question. These bishops, and we covered it last week. We're not going to get into it too much tonight, okay? Because we want to talk about Father Michael Orsi down in Camden, and on the opposite side, Sister Simone Campbell, okay? But we talked about it. It's like Our Lady of Akita. She prophesied, of course, because she's Our Lady, okay? And she said there'll be a time when bishops go against bishops and cardinals fight against cardinals. No sooner did Bishop Gomez come out with his pastoral letter.
It's fair.
A very pastoral letter, not to Biden, but a letter from a Catholic archbishop in the United States, okay? That Cardinal Supich, no sooner than that, came out with a statement basically attacking the timing of the letter. He couldn't attack the content, of course, okay, because the content was spot on. So he said, well, this letter is ill-advised. And then Cardinal Supich gets on the phone with Tobin, all right, in Newark. I believe it was Tobin, if I remember correctly. If I'm wrong, I apologize. And basically called Rome. They went and told teacher on. They went and called the teacher on Bishop Gomez, just like a couple of little kids. He's writing a letter defending the church's teaching on life. Oh, I got to call the Pope. What are you doing, Cardinal Supich? Why are you going against this man? First of all, a lot of people said it was too little, too late. We didn't take that position. We were happy it was said, okay? But nonetheless, this is your brother Bishop, who's saying nothing wrong, okay?
No,
nothing wrong.
It was very accurate.
And the Cardinal Supich attacks him. And then you got other people out there, they're attacking anybody who's let's say, for argument's sake, questioning Joe Biden's position on abortion, okay? And remember this is important because I want to talk about Father Orsi, okay? I never heard Father Altman, now I could be wrong, I never heard Father Altman ever mention Trump's name, ever. By the way, from now on, I forgot to mention to you, I'm going to mention to the audience, from now on we're going to have code word, all right? Because we don't want to get shut down. So we don't even want to mention Trump, okay? So when you need to mention Trump, that's all we're going to say is Orange Mussolini.
Sir Orange the Bad.
Sir Orange the Bad. I'm going to call him, but Mussolini's first name was Benito, so I'm going to call him Orange Benny. All right, and Joe's going to call him Orange the Bad. If you hear Orange, you know we're talking about the guy who was president for the 4 years prior to Joe Biden, okay? Just to throw that out there. But these priests never took a political position, okay? They didn't say, what they were saying was the Democrats have shown themselves to support every single evil there is. Everything that the church teaches, the Democrat Party contradicts. Nearly everything, okay? So that's what these priests were saying, but they're accused of being partisan. Now, tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, we're going to be doing an interview, and hopefully you'll join us because we're going to be live, if I could get here because it's snowing, but I should be able to get here, with Michael Hitchborn. And we're going to talk about, talk a little bit, about these topics, okay? In other words, but having said that, my point is that Oh, yeah, we're going to talk about, I forgot if it's CRS or CCHD, that says in their charter that they don't support partisan politics. That our money that flows to them doesn't go for partisan politics. Michael Hitchborn basically is going to tell us, and all of you, if you join us tomorrow at 9 o'clock at the Frontline with Joe and Joe, how that's not the case.
It was the latter.
All right?
CCHD.
CCHD.
Yeah.
All right? They're supporting groups that are blatantly partisan. Father Altman wasn't making a partisan statement. Father Altman was defending church teaching and basically stating that there is a political party that hates the Catholic Church teaching. But the head of that party says that he's a devout Catholic.
And that's dangerous. And
that's
what we
dangerous.
covered last week.
So then, what did Father Orsi say?
Well, basically, this is also a very strong statement. He's Italian. He's from Jersey. We love him. He's from Camden. That's what he said. He said, Biden is not a devout Catholic, said Father Michael Orsi, a priest of the Diocese of Camden, New Jersey. Any bishop or cardinal or priest who tries to buy into that lie, who gives truth to that lie, is a wolf in sheep's clothing. Very strong words. Orsi pointed out quickly Biden, in his first days of office, began to implement his campaign promises of providing unlimited abortion. The priest noted how Biden rejoined the World Health Organization, part of the United Nations, what he called one of the biggest backers of international abortion. The priest highlighted Biden's plan to reverse the Mexico City policy, which blocks federal funds from going to non-governmental organizations that provide abortion in developing countries. Father Orsi criticized Catholic leaders in the United States, indirectly referring to Cardinal Blaise Cupich, who thought the letter, he's referring to Gomez's letter, should not be published, and appealed to the Vatican for fear that if it were to be published, it might inhibit some of the further negotiations that the Vatican wanted to have with the Biden administration. He's, if you ask me, spot on.
Well, what I want to know, and again, this may come across as uncharitable, but my question is this: what kind of negotiations? The negotiations like Judas, like Judas had with the Sanhedrin, where he got 30 pieces of silver? In other words, is that the kind of negotiations you want? Because you're dealing with a group of people. When you're talking about the Democrats, remember something, Joe and I said this on the show, so this is not a shocker, okay? Joe Biden is not the president, okay? And Kamala Harris is not the vice president. When they use the 25th Amendment, when Nancy Pelosi invokes the 25th Amendment to get rid of Joe Biden, okay, Kamala Harris will not be president then either, okay? This is Barack Obama's third term. And Barack Obama comes in with a Politburo of people that are making the decisions. Now, this group, in other words, when you talk about, let's say, who Father Orsi is criticizing here, the Vatican, at least according to what Father Orsi is saying, want to make sure they have good relations with this particular group, this particular Sanhedrin, okay, who are selling out the Catholic Church for their 30 pieces of silver. And that's not too harsh a statement. That's true. Why would you get in bed with a group of people, this party, okay, that is really the Marxist Party of America? Why would you get in bed with them when they support everything that the Catholic Church is against? Everything. I don't get it.
Well, sadly, I don't know if Catholics take this as serious as they should, but I'll tell you who does is God. You see, God, this is a sin that screams to heaven for vengeance. 42.7 million children were killed in abortion across the world, across the globe, in 2020 alone. How long will God tolerate this? Honestly, I say that with sincerity. How long will he tolerate us? You see, God's very patient. What's the story in gospel about the fig tree? That basically the disciples, because they're human, and they were like, cut it down. It doesn't bear fruit. Give it a year. Water it. Be patient. And then, if it doesn't bear fruit, we'll cut it down. That's basically what's going on here. How long will he tolerate us? This is a horrible, horrible thing. Listen, there are sins, and then there are sins. This is a horrible sin. And we as Catholics can't tolerate it. But I'm going on this diatribe. I don't think this is a driving principle for many people. You see, it should be. It should be. Just like slavery would be. That's a game stopper, okay? If a president said, I'm for slavery, pick any type of person. I'm not even talking about African Americans. Let's just say any person. Pick the person. Slavery. I'd be like, I can't vote for you. Whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, Off the table.
And I can't. Not only can I vote for you, I have to openly oppose you.
Game changer. Well, abortion is that type of event. You see, I could respect you. Listen, we're not going to agree on everything from a political perspective. If you can't vote for Donald Trump, you can't vote for him because of, say, it's his immigration position. You feel strongly about it. I can't vote for him. Okay, write someone in. But you can't, if you're a Christian, vote for Joe Biden.
Because they're the party of death.
Because of this position. You see, that's what's
too.
not, yes,
and others
same-sex
too.
marriage as well. You can't reconcile that with the Bible and as a Catholic with teaching in continuity over the centuries. You can't. And what it says is that's not your priority. Because listen to me, what you say with your mouth and what you do, they have to be the same. Now, we don't do that perfectly because we're sinners, but my point is God looks at our actions, how we live. And when you support something, you're saying with your actions, this is my priority over that. I don't care about this, or it's not that important. But to God, the killing of a child is. You see, it is. And that's not my opinion. Trust me, when we face the Lord, and all of us will, there is going to be no debating. You see, there is no debating. It's not going to be like, well, that's my personal opinion versus my political affiliation. Wrong.
I don't know if that's going to go
That's
over well
not
with
going
Jesus.
to ride.
I'm not Jesus, but I don't know.
And I'll use another one that's not going to go over. Well, it was just business. Wrong. It doesn't work that way. If you're a Christian, particularly a Catholic, you're supposed to treat people like you want to be treated. And if you don't, God has something to say about it.
Yeah.
And if you believe in a just God, then you deserve a just punishment. That's just the way it is.
Right. And if you take that Michael Corleone attitude that it's not personal, it's just business to Jesus,
Doesn't work
I
that way.
wouldn't. I'm sorry. I wouldn't. I have my sins. And
We all do.
And any one of our sins can send us to hell. Okay? In other words, if you're in a state of mortal sin, okay? In other words, I can never say, I will never say that I will never be in a state of mortal sin, because that would be a lie. Okay? In other words, but that's why we have confession. And that's why we need to avail ourselves of it. Okay? And go to Christ with sorrow and contrition and give him our sins and make a firm purpose of amendment not to do it again. I'm not judging Joe Biden, but the thing is, or anybody else, but if you go to Jesus at your judgment, first of all, like Joe said, you ain't going to say anything. But if he did allow you to speak, the one thing you're not going to be able to say is it was just business. And the other one you're not going to be allowed to say is, you know what, I really was personally opposed to abortion, but I didn't want to impose it on anybody else. I just don't think that's going to go over so well.
Well, I could use it even in my own life. I'm not the president of the United States, but like I did graduate college, and when you have a college degree, I have a graduate degree as well, you have certain opportunities that avail you. Like, you can get certain jobs, which could create a good income. But as a Catholic, there's certain jobs that require unethical behavior. This is life, right? We're all in the world, aren't we? So you, as a Catholic, have to say, I can't take that job. I can't do that. You're asking me to do something I can't do because I'm Catholic. I can't do that. You see, that's where we, as people, we make a decision, right? We say, I either value X or I value Y. Well, it's the same thing. If politics requires you to do X and your faith as a Catholic requires you to do Y, you have to choose Y.
Right.
That's where God says, man, you can't worship God and mammon, money, the world. We're in the world, we're not of the world. And that could mean you making a hard choice. I could say that with absolute, honesty. There have been times in my professional career, I'm 50 years old, I've been out of college since 22, that I have had to draw the line for myself. I said, I can't do that. I won't do that. I won't do it. And that's where, again, people in politics, they have, and that if that means you can't be president, well, you can't be president.
Fine.
Okay. I'd rather go to heaven. I hope I go to heaven. How's that? I hope I go to heaven.
I pray you go to heaven.
Well, so do I. But my point is, what is your priority?
Well,
You see,
go ahead.
and that's what
Go
it
ahead.
comes down to in life. We have to choose that. It's your priority.
Well, life has to be like I said, the priority. At least, look, we talk a lot about politics. One thing we have to get straight, okay? We are on abortion all the time because it is not a political issue. And Joe and I are hammering this home all the time. Abortion is not a political issue. The border wall is a political issue. Taxes are a political issue. Foreign policy, those are political issues, okay? Abortion, and a couple of others that we could think of, okay, are non-negotiable moral evils. You cannot support them. So, Joe, tell everybody how Sister Simone Campbell says it's really for us traditional Catholics, and I guess conservative Republicans, if you want to call us that, okay, it's a political issue, and she's wrong for that.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm going to read you what she said, and I honestly, when I first read this is such a lawyered statement. I work in corporate America. It's one of those statements that say nothing.
It's crafted.
You're right.
It's crafted to say nothing.
Right. That's how I kind of view this. It's a lawyered statement. Once again, litmus test for Christ in all people. Christ said, let your yes be yes and your no be no. Christ was perfectly clear. And we as Catholics should always be clear. He also says anything outside of your yes being yes and your no being no is from the devil. He says the evil one. God said that, right? So any bishop, any priest, any Catholic for that matter, should be perfectly clear. If they say something, I should completely see it. Transparency. I shouldn't have to be a scholar. Jesus wasn't, he was a normal guy. He was a carpenter. Jesus didn't have degree after degree after degree. He was perfectly clear. Perfectly. This is what she had to say.
But real quick, today is Sunday, all right? And for all you Italians out there, hold on to your spaghetti and meatballs, okay?
Fair enough.
When you hear this statement, hold on to your pasta and your meatballs.
So this is what she said. She said, President Joe Biden has a very developed approach to abortion. Sister Simone Campbell, executive director of the Network Lobby for Catholic Social Justice, said during a recent panel discussion hosted by the National Catholic Reporter. Simone Campbell, who offered a prayer at the 2020 Democratic National Convention, said on January 21st in a discussion that the political obsession with the criminalization of abortion has broken the church apart.
Stop right there. I'm sorry. Stop right there. No, Sister Campbell. Your dissidence on this position, your rebellion on this moral evil, you have caused the division. Pro-life people, pro-life Catholics in particular, simply are following church teaching. And it is not a political obsession with the criminalization of abortion. And you know something else, Sister Campbell? Murder is a criminal act. Now, however the government wants to deal with that, and society wants to deal with that in regards to the mother is one thing. But any person committing the act, namely the doctor, okay, should be held criminally liable. It is not a political issue. It is a moral issue. So why don't you get that straight?
What I don't understand about this is this is something I've said on other shows, and this is a breakdown in the control structure of the church. The church has a hierarchy, right? She is under a hierarchy. She has residence someplace. I don't know where her convent is, but there's authority in that residence. The bishop is that authority. He has a right to say something. I don't know how that's permitted. She also has a superior. All orders have a hierarchy. There's a superior of the order. That falls upon them. You see, in a corporate structure, I was never in the military, but I work in a corporate structure. There is a hierarchy. I have reports, right? And if I do something wrong, believe me, they're going to let me know. Believe me. And there will be consequences.
Well, she has been shut down.
But
she in the past. Now, let me. If it's not her, it's Sister Janine Gramnick. But they're cut from the same cloth. Okay. In other words, they support positions in America that contradict church teaching, and at least as far as Janine Gramnick, again, Janine Gramnick and Simone Campbell are 6 of one, half dozen of the other. They say the same exact things. It's all social justice claptrap. okay? And they dress it up in Christian language, okay? It's the opposite of Christianity. They've been shut down by the Vatican. You know what they did? Ignored it. Ignored it.
But then you ask them to leave. You see, they have all the authority. Just like in my job, I work in a corporate structure. If my boss tells me to do something, I refuse. He tells me again, I'm fired. And if I don't leave, security will come upstairs and escort me out. You see, she lives under the umbrella of the church. Now, this is a breakdown. This is a breakdown. This has to be addressed, and it's not. This is not the only example. I don't understand it because I am a man under authority. Actually, we all are, in a sense. If we're Christian, if we're Catholic, we're under the authority of God. But in terms of as a man working in corporate America, I understand authority. I work under it. I have to operate under it if I want to get paid. Okay? That's the way it is.
Well, the church should start exercising some.
But they have more authority, actually, believe it or not. Mm-hmm. And there are orders that work that way. Take the Missionaries of Charity. I've worked with them extensively. Mm-hmm. And I can remember a superior saying, the bell is the voice of God. When the bell rings, you drop everything. The military has authority. If the sergeant tells you to go and get out of the hole and run up the hill, there is no time to discuss.
Yeah, you're not negotiating that one.
You're doing it. You see, this is what I don't understand for the life of me. Maybe I'm a simpleton, and it's because I don't get it. I understand the hearts of men. Listen, I'm in the world. I've been around the block more than a couple times, too. Okay? I get it. But what I don't get is how it's permitted. I don't understand it because here's the deal. In corporate America, you're shown the door. If I tell you something, she's under my authority. I tell you again, she should be shown the door because she's causing confusion and scandal. I'm gonna
go ahead.
I'll go on. She goes.
Now this is really what bothers me because now she's trying to get cute. See, that's when you're from Newark, we like to say, now she's trying to be cute. And she's trying to make a religious freedom argument, thinking somehow she's going to appeal to all the pro-life people out there, mostly conservatives. I think you could call us conservatives, pro-life conservatives, in the name of religious liberty. Go ahead, Joe.
She says, he has, referring to Biden, I know from conversations with him.
Now that's her plugging herself. That's like the guy who says, like if you say, "Hey,
I know him.
Did you see that guy? Oh no, I know him. I had lunch with him 2 weeks ago. All right, yeah, go ahead. That's exactly what she's doing. She's plugging her. In my conversation, that'd be like me saying, in my conversation with Orange Man, like if I had a conversation, like I know him.
But she says he has a very developed approach to abortion. Campbell said, and for him, it hinges on religious liberty. I don't know what she's talking about, but I'll go on. And that he will not force his religious belief on the whole nation. She added that many conservatives are concerned over religious freedom and implied that Biden's religious liberty case for legal abortion could serve as a bridge to those citizens. In honesty, listen, I didn't go to the Gregorian, I didn't go to Harvard, I didn't go to Yale. I don't know what she's talking about. For the life of me, being with my heart open, my mind open, reading that 65 times to next Tuesday, I do not know what you're talking about.
Because first of all, she's making no sense overall with the statement that Joe read. Okay? Let's please, for everybody out there, you're watching the front line with Joe and Joe. Okay? Joe Pasillo, Joe Resinello. Please let's deal with this. We dealt with it a couple of times on our radio show on the Crusade channel. We dealt with it a couple of times here. We're going to deal with it again tonight. For all the new people watching from Apple Podcasts, from Spotify, all the people on Mother Mary's Militia, Holy Faith Media, please, when people say this is not an original argument, okay? But this is one that needs to be said more and more and more in this culture war. The prevailing argument has been in our lifetimes, okay, I would say in our lifetimes, I'm personally opposed to abortion, I'm personally pro-life, but I don't have the right to impose that value on other people. You particularly hear that from Catholic politicians because Mario Cuomo is the one who made it famous at Notre Dame in 1984. It is a lie. We need to tell our friends and our family who make that statement truthfully but with charity, tell them, we really need to think about that statement. And here's what I'm going to say to you. Joe and I have made this point before. Joe Biden is a lawmaker. He was, anyway, now he's president, but he was a lawmaker for 47 some odd years, okay? That's all he did in his entire career was pass laws that impose one group's values on another group's values, restricting that group's behavior. But my point is this. That's what the law is. That's what the law does. Not everybody agrees with every law that's on the books. I'll give you an example. Let's give you a mundane example. No, maybe not so mundane example. Obamacare, all right? A lot of people don't value Obamacare, do they? A lot of people fought against it and still fight against it, all right? Obamacare was an imposition of Joe Biden and Barack Obama's values on the rest of us. Now, it passed and it was upheld by the Supreme Court. Whatever you think about that Supreme Court decision, okay, is not the point here. We then have to accept that Obamacare is the law of the land. It is an imposition of someone else's values on me, restricting my behavior or forcing me to do something, like buy insurance in one of their exchanges. Now, why do I say that? Because to say that you don't have the right to impose your values on others is to say that you don't believe in the law. But for Joe Biden or Nancy Pelosi or Mario Cuomo or when he was alive or any other Catholic politician to make that argument, they are a liar because that's what they do for a living. And by the way, the hypocrisy of it too, okay? Joe Biden is very quick to impose his values on the rest of us. And on the same topic, on abortion, remember, he says, I'm personally pro-life and I don't have the right to impose my values on you. Did he not say that? But he's totally okay with taking the tax money of pro-life people and spending that money for abortions, both in America and overseas. So on top of being a liar and making the dumbest argument for abortion that there is, that you don't have the right to impose your values on other, he also is a hypocrite. Because on the one hand, he says one thing, but then he's more than happy to impose his values on you when the left tells him to.
And we elected him. Christians voted for him.
I don't know how.
And this is where, again, our priorities. You see, this is our priorities. The proof is in the pudding, people. I'm telling you this. The proof is in the pudding. We make choices. This is a choice. And we chose this. And I got news for you. You make choices, but you don't choose the consequences. And we're reaping the bad fruit of our choices for about 50 years in this country. Why are we surprised that this is going on? Mm-hmm. What's going on? We shouldn't be.
No.
We shouldn't be.
Not at all.
The family is falling apart. Abortion has gone on for 50 years. Our society is crumbling based upon our decisions. We don't prioritize things properly, and it's bearing fruit. And here's the thing. None of us are escaping it. Whether you're trying or not, it affects everybody. We're all in the mud.
Would you also say there's a consequence of us allowing ourselves for decades now to be bullied by them? I think there's a good
there
thing.
Is. I mean, at the minimum, but at the minimum, you could vote. You see, at the minimum, you can vote. And here's the thing. The church has been clear the last at least 10 years, even on the second Obama administration. I thought they communicated the position pretty well. It's up to us. The second time Barack Obama was elected, Catholics elected him.
Yeah.
Over 50%.
And a lot of it is because of deceivers. And yes, deceivers like Sister Simone Campbell. I do want to point this out, okay? Because just to throw a little bit of, so we need to take away when somebody like this takes an obvious erroneous position, okay, goes out of her way to say Joe Biden in his support of baby murder has a as Joe said has a very, what is it, Joe? A very developed approach.
I don't even know what that means.
Don't even know what that means.
I'll be honest.
Very, very developed approach, okay? And she dresses it in that language. Let's call her out and give you an example of one of her lies. Because it's important. When people lie, well, then that says something about their credibility. So, okay if I give them an example?
Sure.
So in an effort to deceive, now this came from the Gateway Pundit, okay? So in an effort to deceive Catholic voters, Sister Simone Campbell opened her speech at the 2012 Democrat National Convention with a lie. And the lie was that the Catholic bishop stated Paul Ryan's budget failed a basic moral test. Now, for all of you who do not remember, Paul Ryan, Roman Catholic from Wisconsin, at that point was the Speaker of the House. Okay? She falsely said, quote, Paul Ryan claims his budget reflects the principles of our shared Catholic faith, but the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops stated that the Ryan budget failed a basic moral test because it would harm families living in poverty. Close quote. Sounds good, right? Here's the problem. The Catholic bishops never said that. And I don't think she's ever apologized for it because nobody calls her out. Nobody calls her out and says, why did you detract from your fellow Catholic? Why did you lie about him? Knows how come? Is that not charitable to ask somebody why you would lie? Nobody ever asked her about her lies that she told about Paul Ryan and she says about other Catholic Republicans and conservatives. Okay? Why not? Is it uncharitable to call out her lies? I think it's charitable. I think she's being uncharitable. All right? So I just wanted to give that as an example of the fact that Simone Campbell has built her whole career on sand. Okay? The sand being left-wing, social justice warrior, crappy ideology. Because that's what it is. She can't defend it. So then what she has to do is she has to attack others. People like Paul Ryan, who's a good man. I didn't like him as Speaker of the House, but he's a good man. Okay? And people like us who speak the truth, and all you good people out there who basically hold to the truth and rally behind the truth and fight for the truth. Sister Simone Campbell has shown herself to be an enemy of the truth. That's my opinion. I'm not going to speak for Joe. She's an enemy of the truth.
And it's causing scandal. And that's why we have to speak the truth. And that's why we have to bring clarity to the situation. Because, again, she's a person in public, and when she speaks like that, frankly, it confuses people. And I don't know what she's talking about. I'll be honest with you. That's just crafted statement nonsense. Remember, litmus test. Christ said, let your yes be yes and your no be no. Christ was clear. Christ was clear. And so should we.
That's right. And Colleen's in the chat room. I just want to mention it because I just see it. I voted for Trump. I felt I had to because of the abortion issue. I love your honesty, Colleen. Now, Joe and I supported Donald Trump. Okay. Excuse me. Orange man. We supported the Orange Man, okay? And I wasn't fist in the air for Donald Trump. There's many things that he didn't address that I would have liked for him to, and Joe also. However, on most things, and we said this from the beginning, so we can't be accused of being all over the place, our primary reason for voting for him was for the judges. We said that when we were sitting over there, okay, against the bookcase before we had this nice backdrop, when we were two guys sitting in front of a computer with two people watching us, our wives, okay? We said it from then, and we'll say it now, is that we voted for Trump for judges. And we respect your honesty, Colleen. I think Trump gave us more than judges, okay? I like the tax reform and some other things, okay? Fighting against China. But the primary reason was that I was not going to vote for that party because they were going to put up ACLU, SPLC, radical judges who are pro-baby killing. That was the primary reason I voted for Donald Trump, and I think Joe feels the same way. We were pleasantly surprised along the way that he actually became a good president outside of just the judges, which he kept his word on. So I appreciate your honesty, Colleen. Again, nobody's in the tank for Donald Trump, okay? But this party that calls themselves the Democrat Party, we need to fight against tooth and nail. Tooth and nail. They are the party of death, and for me, they represent the focus of evil in the modern world. Reagan said that about the Soviet Union. I believe that about the Democrat Party in America. They are taking positions which represent pure moral evil.
Let's talk a little bit about teachers' unions. Biden's...
Do we have to?
Sadly. Biden's chief of staff came out with some pretty interesting things to say about it because there's pushback by the unions with regard to going back to in-person teaching. We're going to talk about his specific statement as well as what was stated in Chicago. So basically his chief of staff, Ron Klain, he publicly...
He's a retread too. They're all retreads in this administration.
He basically denied the science of COVID-19 transmission in schools. He's siding with the teachers' unions against families and children in the fight to reopen for in-person learning, despite clear data and directives from the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention and other health officials demonstrating it is safe to return to classrooms. Unions of educators across the U.S. have denied or even halted school district plans to return to in-person learning because they claim the schools have not done enough to keep them protected from the virus. Here's the bottom line. It's the kids that are suffering because as a result of this. The kids are the ones that are suffering because in-person learning, there's a rigor to it. I have a daughter in first grade, and we're going to talk about this with the Chicago. She goes to private school. She's been in the private schools. You can go to school. You had a choice, either 100%, this is how it is in Jersey, 100% in person or 100% virtual. She's gone 100% in person. No kid has had COVID that I'm aware of since it started. And there's a rigor. And there are times where they make her go virtual after breaks. Mm-hmm. She's at the table. She's distracted. It's hard. It's a child. Also, keep this in mind. Poor people don't have the computers that people of means have. They don't have the connections, as in the internet connections, the speed that people of means have. Poor people also don't have parents, in many cases, that could help them academically. You know, you go into poor districts, people maybe that English, it's a second language. The poor suffer the most.
Right.
Because rich people also could hire tutors, and they do. I've heard of co-ops. A friend of mine was over today. He was talking about what he heard families are hiring with this in-person learning. Groups, 6 kids will come together. They'll hire somebody. That costs money. Mm-hmm. Families that don't have that can't. Their kids are going to fall behind. This is another example of the unions putting their needs ahead of children. This has gone on for so long, and it's accepted, and it's a sin.
And here's one of the major problems. If the schools were rampant with COVID-19, it might be one thing, okay? But we are constantly told the drumbeat, since we're coming, I was thinking about it today, it's going to be almost a year since I got laid off, which was, now I am back to work in the meantime, but March 18th of last year, I remember it was the day after St. Patty's Day. St. Patty's Day is a little bit over about a month and a half away, okay? It's been a year since we've been going through this. The propaganda machine in this country has constantly said, we have to follow the science, we have to follow the science, we have to follow the science. Okay, now let's assume that they're being sincere, which they're not. Okay, they're not. That's just a mantra, and it's basically like said, you know, psychologically trying to implant that in your head. Got to wear a mask. Science says so. Got to wear gloves. Science said so. We have to follow the science. But here's the thing: they're not following the science when it comes to the schools. Now all of a sudden they don't want to follow the science because what happens when you look at the science? No teacher's getting COVID from a kid. No teacher's getting COVID from a kid.
And like I said,
that's a stone cold scientific fact. The data backs that up. Not me, it's not my opinion. I'll tell you when it's my opinion. But it's not my opinion. That's a stone cold fact. These teachers are not in danger from the kids. And the kids themselves are not in danger. Why? Because they have developing and strong immune systems. Well, COVID could get into their system. You know what's going to happen? It's going to die like that.
I heard this, it's like this is the stat I got. It's 0.997%. Like that your kid is going to be safe. So it's almost like it's to the 1,000th decimal point.
Right. It's no different than any other danger your child faces
actually,
when your child goes back.
Higher.
Right.
There's
so your child has more
dangers.
of a chance of getting a severe cold or a severe flu,
or to get hit by a car,
or their school bus, God forbid, get into an accident. Okay, than they do from getting COVID. This is not about that. This is about the teachers' unions trying to extort. By the way. This is billions, Joe.
It's $305 billion. That's
what
how
do you
much
think they want? They want to use COVID to extort more of your money to go into their failing and decrepit schools.
And who's paying for that? You. You see, this is, again, what I say. Dude, these are the choices that we made.
We need to break their contracts. Their contracts need to be broken, and any judge on a state level that prevents their contracts from being broken, many judges are elected, those judges need to get voted out of office, okay? These contracts that these union teachers have need to be broken and renegotiated, and the teachers' unions have to have no say, zero say over the curriculum, none whatsoever. They have no input into the curriculum, none. Parents and teachers, or parents and the administrators, come up with the curriculum. Not the teacher's job is to teach. You teach what's given to you. That's what you do. But these unions, Joe, they have too much damn power.
Well, let's go to Chicago. Basically, it's Chicago's Teachers Union, the CTU. They voted to defy the order of Chicago Public Schools to return to in-person instruction as the school district continues with its reopening plans. CTU announced that an unprecedented remote, they had a vote, an electronic vote, and 71% of its members voted to continue instruction. This is their quote. With this vote, rank and file educators will continue teaching remotely and safely, and they have been doing this for months. By the way, that's called a strike. You see, you got to lay the hammer down because they tried to send them back. And this is, I thought you were for the poor. Right? You're for the poor.
Well, you just laid out how this is all anti-poor.
This hurts the poor. This does not hurt the rich because rich people can hire tutors and will. You see, rich people buy their way out of a lot of things in life.
And education is one of them.
Correct. And by the way, that costs a lot of money. But people have it, and it's their kids. It's like a rich guy, right? Say I'm a real rich guy. Am I going to let my kid have bad teeth? Hell no. I'm going to pay for it because I can. If it costs $25,000, I pay for it, right? Because I can. But if I don't have the money, I can't. You can't give what you don't have. It's your kid. So you're going to pay for it. Poor people, this hurts because the education isn't the same. It's not. And they have to compete against the rich kid in life, that same family, and they're not going to be able to. So this is a shame. By the way, the American Academy of Pediatrics, okay, they said children rarely transmit the Chinese coronavirus, therefore schools should reopen with certain safety precautions. Like my daughter's school. Every day I take her, every morning. She gets a fever. They give her the test to see if she has a fever. We have to sign something every morning electronically that we know that she's in good health. They have plastic things around their chairs, and they have to wear masks. I'm fine with that. Fine. Go back to school. Go to school. We haven't had a problem.
Right.
The public schools, they want $305 billion. I'm sure there's a lot of pork in that, too, of your money.
Right.
You voted for that, too, guys. And this is where I just say to myself, I just shake my head. I shake my head.
And don't worry about it. They're going to give them that $305 billion or a good portion of it.
There's no doubt about it because he has to, because he needs their votes. You want to talk about systematic racism? The school system in America is the biggest example of it.
By the way, Lisa's in the chat room. Yeah,
America.
Lisa, I saw that video. It looked really, really scary. It looked bizarre, like teachers kind of like dancing in solidarity. Joe, no, it was something that you find in like a Monty Python movie, like it was that crazy. And by the way, along the lines of masks, I don't believe in the masks. I don't. Okay, that's just the way it is. I don't care if people disagree with me or agree with it. It doesn't matter to me. Okay, I think they're doing me more harm than good. Okay, and I think the science backs that up. Fauci lied about it. I don't know why all of a sudden he's held. Donald Trump, Orange Man is the liar, but Fauci admitted he lied. And we let him get away. The media lets him get away with it. But I work in the hospitality industry. All right, if I got to wear that mask and put on those gloves and do extra sanitation so that the restaurant I work in could open and me and my friends that I work with can get back to making our living the way we did before March 17th of last year, I'll wear your damn mask. Okay? Eventually it'll go away. Eventually the gloves will go away. But we need to get open. It's the same with the schools. It's the same exact thing with the schools. No, and again, the schools are much safer than any other place. The statistic I heard, there's not one teacher in the entire world that's gotten COVID from a kid. Not one.
And
not one.
And they want $305
And they want $305 billion. So they have no reason to close down the schools, but they have $305 billion reasons why they want to make sure that before they walk into that school, they get that $305 billion. That's called extortion.
And that's why, I'll be honest with you, this is why our politics, it's just shot. We are shot. I'll be truthful with you. America's finished, people. If we don't make a change, I'm telling you this right now, our enemies abroad are licking their chops.
Because we're weak.
We're collapsing.
We're weak.
It's collapsing. It is collapsing. And when America does collapse, a void, a geopolitical void is going to be created in this world. And it's going to be filled, by the way, And we might not like the way that turns out, just so you know.
Yeah.
The Romans didn't like the way that turned out
Yeah,
when the
they-
Visigoths came into Rome. So just so you know, our enemies, who are smart, see this. Our country is falling apart.
Well, do you think that
It's falling
those
apart.
Germanic tribes went into Rome? What'd you think? You think they marched into Rome while it was like in the days of, let's say, Julius Caesar or Augustus Caesar, where their armies were strong and their people were still, they preached, at least Augustus did, he preached virtue. Cicero wrote on the natural law, okay? They didn't attack Rome when they were strong, but they pummeled them when they were weak. And the parallels, who did we talk to? I forgot which interview we did. The parallels between modern America, or America in, let's say, 2021, and the end of the Roman Empire, the final days of Rome, are striking. One of the biggest ones that nobody wants to talk about is sexual immorality. Being fat, lazy, and oversexed. Guess what? The Vandals came right in, ran roughshod right over them, all right? Took over Rome with no trouble whatsoever. Same thing can happen with America.
Well, it's going to happen unless things change. And to be honest with you, the way it's going, it would be like a miracle. That's why this is a spiritual battle. I just had this conversation with somebody today. We were talking about it, a friend of mine. Man is broken. We haven't figured this out for 2,000 years. Christ came because we're broken. Without God, we're screwed. I got news for you. Even the best of us.
But along those lines, Joe, Sean Marie is in the comment box, right? We are doomed. Jesus help. But Sean, I'm not. This is not an attack. But you contradicted yourself. Of course, Jesus help. Ergo, we're not doomed. We're not doomed as we look to Him. If we unify, you're all talking about unity, right? If we unified around Christ, particularly Christ and His church, okay? God bless all you evangelicals out there. Okay, we love you too. All right, but if we unified around Christ and His church, what did you say? I think you said to in one of our interviews recently, one man, one repentant man, fighter, soldier for Christ, in a state of grace is like 10,000 men.
Yeah, Father Justin, he's a Carmelite.
Father Justin Sinante, we have an interview with him. You can look it up, not now, later, okay, on YouTube and Facebook, okay? Please, by the way, follow us on YouTube and Facebook. Like, subscribe, and share, and do all that fun stuff. And Holy Faith Media. Holy Faith Media on all those platforms also. Justin Sinante said that. Carmelite priest. One man in the state of grace is like an army of 10,000 men.
And
we're not doomed. We weren't doomed with Donald Trump in office. We're not doomed with Donald Trump not in office. We don't care about Republicans and Democrats anymore because Democrats are not Democrats. They are Marxists. And the Republicans are so feckless and weak-kneed, you can't look to them politically for anything. It should be a good wake-up call, Joe Resinello, for everybody. It's almost, maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. I am not God. I don't know the mind of God. But maybe God is saying, you know what? It's time for you to start reaching out to me. Time for you to start reaching out to me. Stop reaching out to your tribe, to your party, to your human leaders, and start reaching out to me.
But that requires
and then you'll win
change.
battles.
You see, people, we have to change. You see, God asks us to change. You see, by the way, that's how you get into heaven too. Right? We don't get on our terms. We have to change, and we're not willing to. And that's why the country's going down the crapper. We have to change our behaviors. I'm not the same person I was in my 20s. And frankly, I got news for you. I still have a way to go. A long way to go. And by the way, we don't get into heaven till we're perfect. I hate to tell you that. So I think we have to start working on that as a people. And this administration is pushing God further away. They are.
Well, then we have to get into a tug of war with them, and we have to keep God in our culture.
And the way to do it is we have to show people. You see, people change by what they see. You see, take Padre Pio, right? He lived in southern Italy. Who wanted to go there? It was like horrible farming land, mountainous, rocky. Like,
hey, Joe, my people are from there.
So am I. But people went there.
Right.
Why? Because he was holy. He reflected God. You see, that's how the church, that's how it renews itself, through holiness. We have to show people our lives and we have to renew ourselves. I'm telling you this right now. This is good that we're having this conversation. Trust me, it's a first step. But the way to show people is your life. Trust me, no one will listen to you if your life does not reflect Christ. I'm going to tell you that right now. Doesn't matter whether you're the Pope or whether you're a Catholic in the pew. No one will listen to you. And I'm going to flip the coin. Everyone will listen to you if your life reflects Christ. Everyone.
Even if they don't want to.
And they will, because they can't say a word.
Right.
I'm telling you this right now. Everyone will. If your life speaks the words of God. That's how we bring the culture back.
And now let me just dovetail on that. We're going to go into one more story. We want you to stick around.
That's two.
All right. Oh, we have two more. I'm sorry. So stick around. Don't go anywhere. Okay. Sunday night, 8 o'clock. Now, we're on Facebook and YouTube, Frontline with Joe and Joe. Please like and subscribe and share. Holy Faith Media. Okay. Also, like, subscribe, share. You'll find them on YouTube and Facebook. We do have, and thanks to you, we're very generous. Joe and I are surrounded by $3,000 worth of equipment because of your generosity. We do have an ongoing GoFundMe campaign. You could find us at Support the Frontline with Joe and Joe on GoFundMe. You could drop in $1. You could drop in $100,000, depending on your means. Okay, but nonetheless, if you want to support the Frontline with Joe and Joe financially, please do so. It's open. Like I said, it's an ongoing GoFundMe campaign. When we accumulate a few dollars, we use it for things we need. We help our producer for things to get our message out to a wider audience. So I wanted to mention that. The other thing is this.
We don't get paid.
No. We don't take any
Not a
money from
cent.
our pocket. We want to make sure everybody knows that money, if it's extra, stays in an account and it's used for things to make this show better. That does not include our pockets.
Like this?
Like that, yes. Like really good professional mics. I want to say this. Some people say, I think rightfully, those people out there that I'm trying to get across or come across to with the way I live, they don't see my life. They don't see my wife or my kids. So it's like my life is hidden from them. Okay, that's right. It's not like that person is coming to knock on your door to inspect every part of your life. Here's what you could do. I'm going to give you 2 recommendations. One of which is start praying with other Catholics in front of abortion clinics. And the reason why I mentioned that specifically, and I've mentioned this on the show several times, is that according to my friends down at that are prayer warriors at Planned Parenthood in the city, all right, Greater Planned Parenthood of New York, that they have a 75% no-show rate for women who have appointments to go and kill their babies when there are prayer warriors in front of there. Please do not diminish the power, the absolute power of the Holy Spirit working through all those prayer warriors in front of Planned Parenthood. Babies are saved. That's number 1. Number 2, Joe and I, well, I'm going to say Joe, because he spearheaded it. He followed it through. I'm a tag along in this one, okay? Joe is starting a rosary crusade in front of our parish here, all right, one of our local parishes, for Catholic men to pray the rosary on the first Saturday of every month. And we want it to catch on like wildfire. And the reason why I bring that up, there's an example of how you could show people how you're practicing your faith in the public square by standing publicly and praying to God through the powerful intercession of the Blessed Mother in public for other people to see.
But also,
I think that's
those
a
are
great
good
thing
things,
too.
But also just how God works in the space of sacrifice. That's how he works. Okay, those are great, good things. I'm not undercutting what Joe said. Both things are good things, no question. But God works in the space of sacrifice. You see, we have to live a sacrificial life. That's our time, our talent, and our treasure. This is our talent. God gave Joe and I an ability, and we're exercising it. Okay, how do you spend your money? Forget about giving it to me. With this show. Don't give me anything. How do you spend your money? Do you spend it on yourself? Do you? How do you spend your time? You see, God works in the space of sacrifice. Someone mentioned Mother Teresa in the chat room. She sacrificed her whole life. That's why God worked through her. Christ sacrificed his whole life. That's why God the Father worked through him. We have to live sacrificial lives where it hurts, you see. You see, this is where the rubber meets the road. People aren't willing to do this. But if we want the light of Christ to shine through us, this is how you do it. You have to live in that space of sacrifice. Time, talent, and treasure. Only God knows what you're doing too. It's not my business. But I will tell you this. When you do that, God will shine through you. And that's how you change the culture.
That's right.
I'm telling you, that's how you become a saint. It's not about ticking boxes. That's how you're an accountant. You have to live in that space of sacrifice. That's the secret. That's where the magic, the quote-unquote magic, the dynamite, as Father Robert Barron uses the term, of Catholicism. When the world sees that, when you're living in that space, I'm telling you, that's how you change the world. That's what we have to do. Someone mentioned recently, I was Dave the Hermit in the chat room, Lent is starting in a few weeks. Start there. It's a good starting point. But I'm telling you right now, that's how we change the world. Let's talk about John Kerry. He made some ridiculous statement. It has to be made because it's.
So you go from that beautiful thing that you were saying about leading a self-sacrificing life and self-sacrificing Christian love. It's almost like a Vince Lombardi speech, okay? And now we have to talk about John Kerry. But that's what we do at the Frontline with Joe and Joe. We have to talk about these people who are spreading lies and who are particularly callous. In this case, it made me sick. Joe and I basically are blue-collar guys. Doesn't matter where we work. We wake up every day and go to work. That makes us blue-collar, okay? Bottom line is John Kerry, this guy never did anything in his life. He married into tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars when he married into the Hines family, okay? And for him to make the statement that Joe's about to tell you about really, really made me upset. I mean really, really upset. Go ahead, Joe.
John Kerry, he says that out of work oil and gas workers should be grateful to Joe Biden for giving them better choices like building solar panels.
Now, we could just stop right there if you wanted to, and we could just go from there. But Joe's got more to say.
So basically, obviously, the media didn't press him on this, right? Why would the media call him out? When so many of them agree with Kerry that blue-collar workers are too stupid to realize that killing their jobs is actually good for them. To put it in terms of the common man, John Kerry is straight up admitting that the Biden administration doesn't give a damn about hardworking people in the energy industry who keep this country running. He might as well have said what Rahm Emanuel said in an interview, who was the Obama chief of staff, then he became the mayor of Chicago, that people like this have to learn code. Really? You're going to teach a guy how to learn code?
Guy's a welder. Guy's a welder.
That is such a ridiculous elite statement. And you know something? This is something that was in Twitter, and I think this person, their name in Twitter is Sunny McSunnyface.
By the way, listen, I don't read tweets, and I read this tweet in context of this article. Go ahead, Joe.
But this guy nails it right on the head.
Nails it, but it's funny.
He says, Biden coming into office and immediately effing over blue-collar workers in purple states is the exact political brilliance that got Trump elected before. It's statements like this, like when Nancy Pelosi said, oh, you're just giving the people from Walmart $1,000. Well, $1,000 to some people is a lot of money, Nancy.
Not to her.
But who eats $14 pints of ice cream
and lets you know about it, and does a YouTube video. Her refrigerator costs more than most people's monthly rent. Okay, with $14 a pint ice cream in there. So, like, in those when
this
people
is out
say,
of touch.
So
They're
when you
out
say,
of touch.
here's what I don't like is that the Jake Tappers and Brian Stelters of the world and the Rachel Maddows of the world, they don't like when people like us call these people elitists. But we could give you example after example about how they act like elitists, how they are, in fact, elitists. John Kerry said workers have been fed a false narrative. The notion that somehow dealing with the climate is coming at their expense. No, it's not. Transition in economy from old to new energy sources is happening because of other market forces. First of all, climate science is a hoax. It's not settled science, the way they always try to pass settled science. That's why they never want to debate it with anybody who knows what they're talking about, number one. Number two, this is pure political will. That's what they did. Joe Biden, in 1 week, cost 100,000 workers, blue-collar workers, their union jobs when he stopped fracking and he shut down the Keystone XL pipeline. And this guy's saying, you know what, they should be thankful. Now they could go build solar panels. This guy's one of the guys that did a video on YouTube. The guy's a welder. That guy's not going to build solar panels. Guy's in his 50s. He wants to weld a pipeline because that's what he does. He welds the pipeline so the oil can goes through it, so you pay less per gallon for your gasoline or less on your heating bill. That guy welds pipes. That's what he does. He doesn't have time to go retrain to make solar panels. And the solar
And he's
panel
not
jobs,
going
and he's
to.
not going to, and the solar panel jobs are not there either. That's a lie. He's saying that Kerry is accusing, let's say for argument's sake, he's saying that workers have been fed a false narrative. No, you're the one feeding the false narrative, Mr. Kerry. And get it straight. That guy, that welder, is now on unemployment. But you don't have to worry about your next meal. You don't have to worry about your next Grey Goose or your next little piece of foie gras. You don't have to worry about that because you know you're getting it. You just put that guy out of a job, and then you're telling him to go work and make solar panels? You're a disgusting person.
Well, that's...
I'm not going to get any more, let's say, for arguments. I'm not going to come up with some sort of intelligent way of describing you. I'm just going to get street about it. You're a disgusting person.
No, but it's out of touch. You know what it is this. There's a saying. Mother Teresa said that you learn humility through humiliation. Okay? There's certain things in life you have to learn through experience, rather. It's like sharing. A family that has, say, a number of children learn to share because it's painful. You have one TV. You have one laptop. You have one, I want to use it. I can't use it. You learn that through living it. You see, these men are out of touch, and it's showing. It's as obvious as the day is long. They're out of touch with regular people, and frankly, those statements are insulting, and they don't even realize it.
Look at the word cat used.
There it is.
Disgraziad.
You got it.
We use it all the time. There's plenty of disgraziads in this country, Cat. And you're right. Kerry's one of them. We don't just say that about people like Pelosi and Cuomo because they're Italian, okay? And they are disgraziad. But you're right. Kerry is a disgraziad. He's, for those of you who are not Italian, like Joe and I and Kat, is a disgraziad, is a disgrace. John Kerry is a disgrace. And not why? Because he takes a different political position? No, because of his callousness towards hardworking blue-collar Americans, some of whom voted for Joe Biden. Okay? God help them. They voted for Joe Biden, and now they're out of a job. And this guy so callously dismisses their concerns, telling them to go and make solar panels. This is basically oil and gas workers are going to lose their jobs, and they're going to like it because Joe Biden says so. That's Kerry's attitude, and that's what makes him a disgraziad. This is terrible. This is terrible. And any blue-collar person, if you can, look, we know the Republicans don't have your back. That's why Orange Man is starting a new movement, and we hope it's going to grow. I'll be a part of it. As long as it's in line with my Catholic positions, I'll be a part of it. And it looks like it will be if it comes to fruition. Republicans, I know, are not my friend. I tolerate them, okay? But the Democrats are my enemy. And they've made me their enemy, because guess what? The Democrat governor of New York took me out of a job for 3 months earlier last year. And then when we got back to work, my job hasn't been the same because of his lockdowns, his stupid lockdowns that the science don't call for, but he does it anyway. They're all very callous towards me and Joe and you and the rest of us who are going out there to earn a living. I don't know why on earth we would give them any power. Why would you give them, unless you're a teacher in the union and you're voting that way, why would anybody give them any power? I don't know.
We're going to end the night with Bishop Strickland. He has a weekly radio show on Virgin Most Powerful out in California. That's Terry and Jesse's gig in West Covina, California.
By the way, Joe, real quick, Jennifer, Orange Man, good. No, we agree. We agree with you, okay? But we describe him the way the media was. He's Orange Man bad. That's all. But I know you know that, Jennifer.
He basically made this statement this week, and I want to talk to it because I think it's very important. He basically said the church must do better at preparing couples for marriage. This is something that Pope Francis echoed in the very beginning of his pontificate with regard to marriages. Most of them aren't sacramental. And he's absolutely correct. And Strickland is basically adding to that the church has to do a better job at preparing couples for marriage. This is what he had to say. He said, in this week's episode of the Bishop Strickland Show, he discussed that the Catholic notion of conscience and how a morally informed conscience leads one to respect and cherish family, marriage, and human life. Taking inspiration from Bishop Fulton Sheen, Strickland firmly stated that we are morally obligated to follow an informed conscience. Let me stop right there and I'll read after this. You see, our conscience is formed by the church's conscience, right? You see, when people say, I follow my conscience, that's actually not correct. Our conscience has to be subservient to the church's conference because the church is the body of Christ. And he's spot on. Our conscience has to be malleable. It has to be teachable. That's not what's going on. He's nailing it on the head. I'll continue. He says, moreover, he describes it is a great responsibility to use the moral compass that God has revealed to us to form our conscience. Bishop Strickland notes how today's society has too many malformed consciences, most especially among Catholics, which have thus led to rampant immorality, such as broken families and marriages, abortion, and more. He says the majority of problems that we find is that there are many Catholics and non-Catholics that would buy the world's message to not have kids because they do not allow a couple to purchase their material pleasures. However, Bishop Strickland denounces this fixation with materialism because wealth and other possessions give no fulfillment as compared to nurturing a family and fulfilling how God made us. Overall, Bishop Strickland finds that bishops and priests and other church leaders should teach more on forming moral consciences, especially as it pertains to family and marriage. You see, you don't know what you're not taught. The church could do a better job, but that also begins in the family. What are you, as parents, modeling for your kids? By your actions. How do you spend your money? How do you spend your money? That's a touchy question.
I got a buddy of mine. It speaks to what you're saying because he's trying to live exactly what you're talking about. In other words, because he's got kids, all right? And one of his daughters is getting to those dangerous teenage years. He's 14 years old, okay? And he told me on the phone. He goes, Joe, it's my daughter's birthday. That's the way he talks. He goes, Joe, it's my daughter's birthday, brother. He goes, she's 14 years old. He goes, you got to pray for me. I just got her a cell phone, but I trust her. I think I taught her right. And what he's saying is basically, he could trust his daughter. He gave her a cell phone, okay? In other words, he taught her to use it properly. And he trusts because he's a good Catholic, that he brought her up the right way and did what you said. Formed her properly so that she won't make the mistakes that other kids do and who are constantly, like this in their phone, okay? And on Snapchat and all the rest of that nonsense, okay? Point being, see, this is where I don't like when some people in the church, what they do is they place conscience above everything else. Now that in and of itself
is not correct. First of all, if you're going to rely on conscience, and somebody said it in the chat room, I'm sorry if I forgot who it was because the comments are going quickly. Somebody said in the chat room, the key word is informed. And he uses that.
Informed conscience. Number one, not just conscience, informed conscience. You know what's right, you know what's wrong. Your conscience is what tells you what's right and wrong. It's a gift from God, okay? That's what helps us to discern. If you have either an ill-formed or a conscience that's not formed, then you have a problem, okay? And Joe's saying it right. This is what in the home you're supposed to do. That's why I brought up my friend Bill and his daughter and his cell phone. This is what the church is supposed to do. But even so, even if you have an informed conscience, your conscience is not the arbiter of right and wrong. God's law is the arbiter of right and wrong.
And you could be sincere but wrong. I can remember as in high school talking about abortion in my history class, saying basically, I'm against it, but I can't I remember saying this actually in a Catholic school. I was wrong. I was 17. I was wrong. My point is, you could be sincere but be sincerely incorrect. That's where you have to have a malleable or teachable conscience. You ever use what's the analogy? I am the potter, you are the clay. Clay is malleable. God forms you. You see, we don't know everything. I don't know everything. I've learned things doing this show, actually. I'll give you an example. Natural family planning. I'm married 7 years. I've never used contraception, but natural family planning could be used as a contraception, and you can't use it for that. It's supposed to be used to space your children out. I learned that just recently, but I have to be open to that, you see.
See, American Catholics, unfortunately, are not open to a lot of times on church. Well, why should I listen to the church? Like abortion comes to mind. This is what we're dealing with in the beginning with Sister Simone Campbell. Well, why do I got to listen to church? I have a conscience. My conscience determines what's right and wrong. That's a malformed. That's a malformed
because
conscience.
God determines. You see, the sin of Adam and Eve wasn't eating the apple. The tree was what? The tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And God said you could do everything except eat from that tree. What was he saying? He was saying, I determine what's right and wrong. You live in the garden and I gave you everything, but I am the arbiter of what's right and wrong, and it's for you to listen to me. You see, that's how we get into heaven, guys. Mm-hmm. And you see, here's the deal. When you follow that, you're never going to be comfortable in this world to a degree. We're not supposed to be comfortable. Catholics, this isn't our home. We're journeying through. You see, too many people, it's natural, actually, even like myself. I want to be comfortable. We all do. But we have to be in constant transition, forming to God's will. And that's painful and that's hard. It's not easy. That's why we have to pray. That's why we have to be in a state of grace. That's why we have to live in a sacramental state. It's not easy. We have to pray to the Blessed Virgin Mary to help us, look to the intercessions of the saints, have community on earth. It's hard. This is hard.
But this is why you're bringing this up about Bishop Strickland. The church has to make things clear. So no matter how hard it is, we know it what we're doing to be either right or wrong. No, so Bishop Strickland is saying, yes, you're right. Much of it has to do with us. We have to look to ourselves first. Okay, but we do have the church. And Christ left us a church. Okay, we're supposed to listen to the church. That means the church is supposed to be equipped, particularly with men in the priesthood who are telling us the truth and are equipping us for these things. Bishop Strickland is talking about the church needs to do a better job on marriage. I don't like the fact that I agree with Joe on this particular point because I wish it were different. I think he's right. I don't know this for sure, and it's an opinion, but I think he's right. There are so many marriages where people were never told what they're getting into. They're never told. They're not going into it with their eyes wide open.
Or they were told and they basically blow it off.
They blow it off, and nobody tells them after that. Okay, nobody takes that hands-on approach to tell them after that. Are you going to mass? Are you going to confession? That's what priests used to. When I was growing up, that's what priests used to do. Are you going to mass on Sunday, Joe?
Well, also
Joseph,
keep this in mind too, especially with regard to marriage. Marriage is hard. Especially when you have kids. There's deep sacrifices that are involved. Deep, deep sacrifices. God's grace is available to you when you live a sacramental life. When you don't, you're behind the 8 ball. Are we telling our married couples this? Here's the thing. You could choose whatever you want, but there are consequences. And here's the deal. We're all human. We're all human. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Lack of sleep. Not spending your money the way you like to, your time not being utilized the way. You're human, just like I am. You feel that. God's grace soothes over those bumps. You see, we need God. Mankind has to come to that conclusion. It's been 2,000 years since Christ has come and gone in the body on earth. We still haven't come to that conclusion. What was the message from the mountain when they went up the transfiguration? This is my beloved son. Listen to him. We still don't want to. We still don't want to. It's the sin of pride. I know better. I know better. I know better. Even when we say, as Peter did, I'll never run from you. But we do. All of us do. That's why we have to stay close. We have to recognize our own weaknesses. As St. Paul said, it's when I am weak, then I am strong. You have to recognize it. You have to know who you are, a sinner. You see, we're sinners. We need God. We need God in our marriages. We need God in our life. We need the church because the church gives us the sacraments. Even if our priests, and some of them are fantastic, you could find good priests if you look for them. But even in places where there isn't perfection, the sacraments are perfect. I choose to focus on that because I am imperfect. I go to confession, I pray the rosary, and I try to live a sacramental life, and I pray with my wife. If we do that, our will is softened, and our fortitude is made stronger, and we are more resolved. And we all need that. That's how we change the culture. Donald Trump has come and gone. Christ is here. His church is here. We have to double down on what we do. I'm telling you, that's how we make a difference. Each of us can do it. It's your choice. Time, talent, and treasure. Remember this. God works in the space of sacrifice. We have to live sacrificial lives. You want to change the world? Live a sacrificial life. People will listen to you.
Absolutely. And that's where we're going to leave it. So thanks for joining us here at the Frontline with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, Joe Resinello. Remember that you can follow us on Facebook and YouTube. Please like, subscribe, share, do all that fun stuff. We're also going across Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Twitch, Rumble. We're on it all. So wherever you can help us by hitting a button, a like, a subscribe, a share, and sharing it with your friends, that would be a tremendous help. We do have our crowdfunding campaign going at Support the Frontline with Joe and Joe. You can find that on GoFundMe. Support the Frontline with Joe and Joe if you want to drop in a couple bucks. And please remember to follow and support Holy Faith Media. You can find them all over the place. That's our buddy up in Canada, Jonathan Ross, who produces our show. And remember, till next time, our conversation is your conversation, and that conversation is going on everywhere. We'll talk to you guys next week.
Thank you for listening.